Welcome to the Quantum Connection Podcast. We are your hosts, Vanessa and Heather.
Join us as we explore the new quantum health paradigm.
Learn how to reconnect with nature to regain your health and to mitigate the impacts of modern living.
As quantum health coaches and classical homeopaths, our mission is to inspire and motivate you on your healing journey.
This is for educational purposes only.
Let's dive into today's show.
Welcome back to the Quantum Health Connection podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa Baldwin, with my amazing co-host, Heather Crimson. And today we have a special guest. She is known as the Quantum Eye Doctor on Instagram. We were just raving about her beautiful graphics and posts that she makes, and she's really sharing such amazing information with the community. We have Dr. Valerie Giangrande, hopefully I said that right, who is an optometrist, and she's been in private practice for over 20 years. She is certified as an integrative health and nutrition coach, as well as certified in the Applied Quantum Biology Practitioner. And she believes that quantum and circadian principles are the foundation to overall health and wellness. So we concur and we are with you on that. So we are happy to have the Quantum Eye Doctor here with us today. Thank you so much, Valerie, for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I really appreciate it.
So why don't we start with, how did you go from a traditional optometrist to the Quantum Eye Doctor? Like, take us on that journey.
Yeah, sure.
To that.
Sure. When I was in optometry school, I started to, I lived in Manhattan. We were inside all day wearing sunglasses and hiding from the sun. I tend to be a little pale, and I started to develop thyroid. I was diagnosed with a thyroid condition. I was tired and I just got put on Synthroid, and I thought that was it. No big deal. So what? I take a medication. Didn't think anything of it. Continued with optometry school, started practicing, started having kids a few years later. When my son was born, a few years into, when he was about 4, he started to develop some health issues, some kind of neurological things that were going on. And we went to the pediatrician. The pediatrician said, we'll just medicate him. And at that point I said, absolutely not. Went to functional medicine. He had methylation issues. He had gluten. We changed everything. We changed our diet. We started to become really holistic, and it helped. It really did help. The things that were happening were disappearing mostly. And I mean, this is over years. This didn't happen all at once. And then I was having my own health issues. I was just getting more tired, and I was fibromyalgia, just not feeling great. So I ended up going to a different functional medicine doctor, and he asked me how much sun exposure do I get every day? And I thought that was fantastic because I had no idea. I was completely blown away by that. He turned me on to Dr. Jack Kruse, which a lot of us, I think, have kind of seen or found Dr. Jack Kruse, and he changed everything. When you start to see this information, and when I started to implement or understand that light controls everything through our eyes, I mean, it's just so amazing. It was just such mind-blowing information that it completely changed everything pretty quickly. My whole, my family, I told them how to, we did everything we could. And then I started to talk to patients. So over the years, I always worked, I would always talk to patients about more like holistic stuff, because I feel like the eyes are the window for the whole body. And then now it's transferred into light. I mean, light is everything. And so that's since 2017. So I've been educating patients. We changed our life. And then with the Applied Quantum Biology program, it was just unbelievable. And I feel like that really took I understood it even more, because I feel like I thought I understood it, but once you take that, I mean, I just understood it so much more. And now I'm all in. I am all in. I just want to share it with the world. And it's been amazing.
Right.
Yeah, I can hear the enthusiasm in your voice and the passion commitment, and your journey is so like many people's, right? How we go through all the things and then find our way eventually to what Vanessa and I consider like the root, right? The foundation of our health.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, one of the things you're known for is saying that the eyes are hormone making, or is that right, organs, or how do you tell us about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, because light is controlling everything in our body, it starts the connection between our eyes and the brain, between our outside world and our inside world through light is through our eyes. So when I learned that the eyes have UVA receptors, ultraviolet A receptors, that actually create neurotransmitters and hormones directly from the eye. I mean, it's amazing that we've been ultraviolet light is kind of taboo in my industry, right? It's one of the biggest things, and this is the biggest hurdle that I have to talk to people about, but by saying, we need ultraviolet light in our eyes, just that statement alone can throw people into a really big, it's a hard thing to hear. So I kind of backtrack and just talk about how light is controlling every aspect, is controlling our main clock. So how we need that blue light in the morning to set our rhythm, because that's what tells our brain what time it is. It's the correct timing. But then an hour after sunrise is when ultraviolet A light starts to show up. And we don't need to be afraid. It's just a very low level of ultraviolet, and we're not staring directly at the sun. But we need that signal to stimulate UVA receptors on our cornea, our neuropsin. We have amino acids in our eyes that are basically these photon traps that are waiting for ultraviolet A light to take these amino acids and turn it into things like serotonin and melatonin and melanin and dopamine, thyroid hormone, noradrenaline, all of the things that we need. And I tell people, melatonin is what we consider to be our sleep hormone. But if we're not getting that ultraviolet A light through our eyes in the morning, we're not making it. So we need these. It's probably one of the most crucial things, and it's controlling the entire body. So we do need those signals. So the eyes themselves are responsible for creating hormones and neurotransmitters that we need. And then it's the whole body. I just love it. So light is the information signal that we need through our eyes. And when we're constantly wearing these sunglasses, or even contacts, unfortunately, we're not getting those signals. And then we're inside getting the wrong signals all day, which is just so disrupting. And you see all these conditions that are happening, and you start asking people about their lifestyle, and people are inside and they're outside wearing sunglasses all day and, all night. So it's tough.
And sunglasses are really a new invention, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
If you think about the time period that we've been humans, right? Sunglasses, sunscreen, living indoor lives, these are all new things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that when you said the eyes are hormone making organs on the Quantum Biology Collective. I just want to tell every person that I see that, like, it was like my favorite saying, because of course I've learned that about how that UVA light is so important for the neurotransmitter production and all that. And it's like, but that's so true, because that's even true in the morning when we go out for the sunrise, right?
Yeah,
We're getting,
right. The cortisol,
the cortisol melatonin balance
right.
is happening. When we block blue light at night, or just the presence of darkness is going to support making melatonin. Like, the eyes are hormone making organs in so many ways. And we don't think of the eyes having anything to do with our hormones ever. Like, nobody really makes that correlation anymore, or we don't think about that. Like, nobody thinks about that. I mean, I wore sunglasses literally, most of my life till I learned this information, and I was extremely photosensitive, like night blindness, all the things. So it was a big adjustment, but I'm telling you right now, if you are still wearing sunglasses, it is absolutely possible to retrain it. And the less you look at blue light, the better that's going to be, right? That's the world of difference too. I love that you said you don't have to look directly at the sun, of course, either. Like, you're just out in that presence.
Yeah, that cortisol response in the morning is so important. Absolutely. All of that. A lot of people coming in asking for tinted windows because they're so light sensitive, or that, they can't even, they can't look at anything. They can't be outside. And that's where you can really train the body. Like you just said, you can totally reverse that just by doing it properly and not hurting yourself. There's so many ways to do it just easily. A few minutes at a time, just get started and go slowly. And it really makes a huge difference. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's so huge.
The sunglasses issue is so interesting because it doesn't take that long for people's beliefs to shift, and then they think that's the truth, right? So all these many eons, we didn't have sunglasses. So I guess that's always where I go, is like, well, how did people survive without them? And they were still in the snow, or they were still in the desert, and they were still on boats, which is where people say that they need them because of the glare. So what do you say to people who say, like, well, it's just so medically, ill-advised, and you have to protect your eyes and all that?
So, in certain cases, if we are in the snow, the reflection is what can damage us mostly. So when we're in the snow, if we're on boats, even driving, if people are feeling really uncomfortable, because a lot of the reflections from the sun when we're driving comes off of other cars and it hits the eye at a certain angle. And if people keep their windows closed, they're not getting any benefits from the sun anyway. So if they're, in those cases, for safety, of course. And, if someone's never been outside in the sun, we don't want to just tell them to take them off and be outside and just be outside for hours. It has to be done correctly. Or perhaps if someone is in the tropics and maybe outside all day, you want to protect, too much is no good, but you can always wear a hat. You can go in the shade. You can do other things. Right. You can wear sunglasses. It's just a matter of, we do need sun. So what I tell people is, go outside and lower your sunglasses for a few minutes, just these little hits of sun throughout the day. If get your morning signal of sun, because that's the most important. Get that hour after sunrise, that UVA rise, and then just get these little hits. And that's it. And just all you have to do is pull them down, and you don't need much. The photons will get absorbed no matter where we are, even if you're in the shade, you're still getting the right signal. So it's okay. I wear hats a lot. I mean, I can't get that. I'm not, when I'm outside, I wear hats. I wear hats if it's the middle of the day and and it feels like it's too much. I wear hats. I'll go under an umbrella. But I don't wear them because I feel like I don't need to wear them anymore. Like, my eyes really aren't that sensitive anymore, which is fantastic.
Yeah, agreed there. That's such great advice. Like, slowly but gradually build that up. And I found for me, being so photosensitive when I first started doing this, is getting out in that morning light when the light frequencies are less strong. And then the sunset light was also extremely imperative, getting all that infrared and that red light without the blue, not blue, but without the UV. So you're getting less intense light, and it really helps heal that situation, I think, as well. So that would be my other recommendation. I'm sure that you would probably concur on that one as well. Yeah, definitely go slow.
Right. And then if people are really, I mean, obviously blocking the light at night, like, everybody could always start with just wearing these at night, wear your orange glasses, block blue light at night. At least you're eliminating that whole aspect of increasing cortisol and giving us the wrong signal. And just doing that to start, if you just want to start there, even that's a huge benefit, because that has to be done, and start on that end. And like you said, the first hour of sunrise, there is no UV. So we don't even have to be fearful of that. You could start with very early morning sunrise and orange glasses at night, and just start there. And it's even that would be a big benefit.
Huge benefit. If everybody did that, wow, think about the difference in the world. Those two little things, right? Such a huge benefit. And now what is your advice? Go to, we're talking about sunglasses, right? So we kind of touched on that. Like, I think almost wearing sunglasses all the time is literally a detriment to your health, because literally you're always blocking the signal. Then your body doesn't know what to do and when to do it. And your eyes are not going to make those specific key hormones as well. So it's not only your circadian rhythm, there's also the part about, you're more likely to burn, and you're not going to make as much melatonin. There's lots of, things that you can go into with sunglasses too. But also want to touch on, even contacts and glasses are blocking those specific light frequencies that we need also, right?
They are. So glasses are easy. Again, same thing. You just want to pull them down. Contact lenses, most brands of contacts block UV light. So just from a UV standpoint, there's only like maybe a handful of contacts that don't block UV. So you can wear those. But even wearing contacts in general, you're still blocking a little bit of oxygen, you're still changing the light frequency. And we need, the front of the eye, there's no blood vessels. In order for us to see, the reason why we see so clearly is because the cornea has no blood vessels. The lens has no blood vessels. There's no blood vessels in the center of the eye. So the oxygen that we're getting at those parts of the eye, it comes in the front of the eye, comes from the air, and behind the eye, it comes from melanin, it comes from the choroid, it comes from areas behind the eye. We need that exclusion zone water. We need all the energy from those other quantum aspects of the eye for it to work. So if you're wearing contacts, I mean, my advice, and again, this doesn't get, people don't really listen to this one. This is a little bit harder, but really try to put them on after you've already had that morning sun. Don't wear them too much. Take them out the second you get home. Give your eyes a break. There are people who wear them from the second they wake up until they go to sleep. They don't even own glasses, and their eyes, I mean, you see these blood vessels growing into their eyes. The body's saying, I need more oxygen. That's the clue. It happened yesterday. I had somebody who said, I lost my glasses. I've been wearing my contacts nonstop. I said, yeah, it's pretty obvious. Your eyes have blood vessels, and we're not supposed to have blood vessels in the cornea, but they're growing into your eye because your body's starving for oxygen. So, and it's even worse, of course, if we ever sleep in them. I never recommend that, but just contacts in general can be an issue when they're overworn. I don't want to ever say you can't ever wear them, but you want to cut it back. You want to cut it back. And the higher the prescription we have, the more, the thicker the contacts are in a way. So if you're very nearsighted and say you're, I don't know, -8, the way optics work is that nearsighted lenses are very thick around the edges. So a contact lens, that piece of plastic, is thicker right around the edge. So you're basically covering more of that blood supply or that oxygen. So you're blocking more of it, even though contacts are thin, and contacts technically do let oxygen through. They are making them better and better. So when they talk about the amount of oxygen transmission, the studies will say, oh no, the oxygen gets through, and it does, but it's not the same. It's not the same as having our eyes exposed to natural, the air and the light that we need. So it can be an issue.
Are you finding that a lot of your clients, after you educate them and they're receptive, are starting to not wear contacts as much?
They cut them down. A lot of them will cut down and say, I give my eyes a break. I only wear them on, I don't wear them on, or I only wear them on the weekends. There's some people do. Teenagers, no, they'll wear them. They don't really. Teenagers are probably my most difficult audience. The parents of the teenagers kind of listen. They love, can you talk to my kids about the phone? Can you tell them about, about being off their iPad? And they love it. And I love that conversation. And the kids just nod, and my own kids are teenagers and they're like, they listen to me, but my daughter's giving me a hard time wearing the red light glasses at night because she's on her FaceTime and she's embarrassed. I said, let's start a trend. Why don't we all start a trend?
Yes, that's what I say to my son. Start the trend. Be the trendsetter.
Yeah,
be the trendsetter. And then I'm like, look at Simon Cowell. He's got some
right.
kind of like anything I can. But there are a couple of gamers who I've seen who've been wearing like yellow tones because even yellow would make even an impact at a hero, right? So. Right. But I have a teenager too, so I get it. And he actually wears glasses. And my husband wanted him to get contacts for wrestling practice. And I was like, and he wasn't into it because he didn't want to touch his eye and the whole other. And I was actually like, great, please do not switch. Wear your glasses. You know what I mean? Like, and I always tell him to take them off outside. And he does it sometimes here and there.
Right.
So hard. Teenagers are tough, but
20-year-olds are tough too, even in their 20s too, because they're so healthy that they're invincible at that age. It's like when you get to the mid 30s and on, when people are starting to feel a little, those are the people who listen, or the moms, they tend to listen. Teachers listen for the most part. I tell every teacher to open the windows in in their classroom, but yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, because you do think you're invincible at that age. If you would have told me when I have very poor vision, I had a very, thick pair of glasses since age 3, third grade or so, 8 years old or so. And I wanted to wear contacts, of course, as a teenager, because I wanted to look good. Right. And I slept in them all the time. My eyes were always so dry. They'd actually like pop out and be so crusty, and I did all the things. And at that age, if you would have told me this information, I probably would have said, okay, and kept going, because that's what teenagers do. Right. But now, of course, I know so much better. But yeah, I mean, when people are ready to change, all right, and I actually, let's get into a little bit about LASIK, because I actually had LASIK done before I knew any better. So I had LASIK done about 13 years ago after my second son was born. And so what are the implications and your thoughts on that? I mean, I know that it's kind of irreversible, and if damage is done, it's done. But what are your thoughts, and what can you say about how that actually affects those light frequencies coming into the eye and making the hormones? And I also was wondering your thoughts. Do you think that the body would make an adaptation where it would use the skin more, the photoreceptors there, if there was damage?
Right. Yeah. So there's no way to know if those neuropsin cells are damaged because they're on the cornea. Depending on how much of the cornea was disrupted by the laser, basically shaved down, there's a potential that neuropsin can be damaged. And then of course the signaling is off. So, but in your case, if you have all these benefits from circadian rhythm and you've changed your life, then it didn't get damaged, or your body made adaptation. So I think the body, as long as we're giving it the right environment, I don't think it's hopeless at all. You obviously were able to change your entire life. So I feel like something's working. It's the, people who get LASIK perhaps, and maybe there's neuropsin damage, and they continue to be on screens and they never get their light and they're not doing anything to help. I mean, the skin can be our third eye, and we have all these receptors in our skin. So yes, we definitely want to use our skin. I believe there is a little bit of UV that can get through the sclera, the white part of the eye. I don't know how the signaling is with that, but there's always going to be an adaptation as long as we're giving our body the right environment. Cataract surgery too. Cataracts block all of the UV. That's a big problem with cataract implants. But again, same thing, I guess in that case, you really have to do everything we can, definitely use our skin in those situations as well. Unfortunately, with cataract implants, most people are older already when they're getting those cataracts removed, and maybe their mitochondria are already not working as well. So, that could be a little bit harder. But LASIK, people are young when they get LASIK. So usually things get better, hopefully.
Yeah, that's great advice. I like that. I hope that that's true. I think that's true for me. Like, things probably weren't damaged, and I definitely get my skin always out in the sunlight as much as I possibly can too. I have another odd question that just came to me that was interesting, that happened to me with my eyes, and maybe you might know. I mean, obviously it must have something to do with melanin, but my eyes used to be more dark brown, and the more sunlight I expose it to, the more hazel they become, more green they become. Do you think that's melanin going inside of the body, or what do you think that would be
Interesting.
from?
Interesting. I'm not sure, because if you're getting more sun, I would imagine that your body wouldn't need to pull in that melanin
I
unless
don't
it
know.
is. That's a good
I
question.
used to have a lot more freckles too, and I'm more tan. Like I used to be more a person that, like my kids, like I have two kids that are like so freckly,
Yeah.
and those are like melanin storages, I call them, right? I'm like,
Yes.
you're gonna have less freckles in the winter because they're gonna absorb in, right? So I
Yeah.
used to be like way more freckly, and now I just kind of more tan. But yeah, my eyes got
I
lighter.
mean, melanocytes move, right? They definitely do. I mean, I've heard Dr. Cruz say it over and over again, right? Melanocytes are moving. So I would imagine even in the eye, they can. I don't typically see changes in eye color. So I don't know exactly, but I mean, melanin, it is a melanocyte, right? Those are melanin cells on the iris. So there are medications that change the color of our eyes, that we use for glaucoma, things like that, that can actually, like prostaglandins can actually change the amount of pigmentation we have in our iris. But obviously you're not taking anything like that. So I'm not exactly sure. That's interesting.
All right. Well, I'm just an anomaly.
Yeah.
It's all good.
So Valerie, the eyes, you say the eyes, they have their own microbiome, right? And I didn't know that, so I'm really excited to hear about that from you. But and then how does that connect to the rest of your body's microbiome?
Well, it's similar. The eye is an extension of the skin. So we all have our own microbiome, but there are studies showing that, there's different colonies of bacteria, viruses, everything in the eye that we need to have balanced. So anything that's off the UV light's going to keep us balanced with our microbiome, just like it does in the body and our gut. So contacts can disrupt that. Allergies tend to disrupt it. Anything that disrupts it, you get people who have chronic just conjunctivitis. I say conjunctivitis, I just mean chronic mucus, chronic dryness, anything that throws that off can really disrupt the tear film. How it links, I don't know if it's the same microbiome in our, I'm not really sure about that, but we just need that microbiome. And again, a lot of people who say had COVID or, any viruses tend to get, these pink eyes that linger and linger and linger. And I mean, I've seen it over the last few years that we just get people saying, ever since I had, COVID or whatever, whatever it was, they, they have inflammation in their eye and it's just not going away.
That's
and it's
probably a histamine response is my
it could be,
assumption.
yeah. So the virus will just settle and it just messes your immune system up for a very, very long time. And it's just, histamine, exactly, mast cell issues and everything. So I think some of that has to do with microbiome, but a lot of us are using eye drops, right? Eye drops are going to have preservatives in them that will kill bacteria or antibiotics. So I'm not saying that eye drops are necessarily a bad thing because sometimes we need them, but when we take them on a regular basis, we are disrupting our microbiome. Most people will use eye drops in a bottle. There's preservatives in those eye drops and they're meant to keep the bottle sterile. So you have these preservatives that are messing with our microbiome. There's also bacteria that can get into the glands and create what we call blepharitis, which are the oil glands that get clogged. So there's a lot of interplay with bacteria, viruses, and everything. And it just has to be just healthy, really.
Oh my gosh, you said blepharitis. That reminded me, I used to get the inflammation of the upper eyelid, and I first got it from eating strawberries. They were organic, but I thought, really? And I don't get it anymore, but it was awful. Like it just looks awful. It doesn't hurt, but it just looks awful. As homeopaths, Vanessa and I are classical homeopaths, and for many, many years, since like the early 90s, I would use the Similasan and their homeopathic eye drops. And who knows what political shenanigans happened, but the FDA pulled those. And I still have my last one. I'm trying not to use it too much, but I know that our homeopathic trainer said we can make our own eye drops from homeopathics, but there has to be a benign or supportive eye drop that will not have these awful preservatives, and then they also can help facilitate the microbiome. Are there such a thing?
And usually, if we recommend drops, most of us will recommend preservative free, just so you eliminate the preservative aspect of it. So teardrops come in unfortunately plastic vials. So then, I guess you got to think about the plastics really, which again, there's so much to think about, but at least there's no preservatives in these unit doses. So I guess there's a potential to make them as unit doses. I hesitate to say, but colloidal silver. And again, I don't know that it's in any eye drops or anything, but I know, kind of from a natural standpoint, a lot of people will use colloidal silver to just keep growth of microorganisms at bay, because it's very antibacterial, antiviral. I don't know that it would disrupt the normal microbiome. I don't know if it just disrupts, all of the bacteria. So something like that, if you were making your own, maybe a good thing, because silver is pretty safe, from a standpoint of health, but
Mm.
preservative free is usually what we recommend. There are a lot of preservative free options out there.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, we can, at homeopathic, we can make our own eye drops, Heather. You just need to use the homeopathic remedy and some water, and you could make that. So that would be a good recommendation for people too. That could be really supportive also, if you're dealing with dry eyes. So how do you, like, someone comes in, to your practice, and they're open and they're willing to hear your information. Like, where do you start them? How do you explain to them to take care of their eye health, whether they have issues or they don't? Of course, that would probably be varied differently, but if they're open and willing, and you're like, you have the ideal client, right? You're like, how can we best take care of our eye health, right? Go ahead.
Right. So I give my whole light spiel. That's the first thing I say. Our eyes are controlled by light, controls everything in the body. And we need to get the proper light in order to be healthy. So our eyes are wired for sunshine. And I guess I say the same thing every time. So I say our eyes are wired for sunshine. We need to get sunrise light through our eyes every single morning. We have receptors in our eyes. We have these blue light receptors right at the bottom of our eyes that are just waiting for blue light to tell our brain what time it is. When the sun is rising, we have red and blue. They meet. And that's what stimulates those cells in our eyes to fire and tell the brain that it's morning. Once the brain knows it's morning, now the brain says, okay, let's wake up. Let's make cortisol. Let's get hungry. Let's do everything that we needed to do. And then about an hour after sunrise, we start getting a little bit of UVA. And I know that we're very conditioned to be afraid of UVA, but just hear me out. We have UVA receptors. And again, I go through the whole thing about how we have UVA receptors and how it makes all those neurotransmitters. And then I go through like the perfect day of how we should be getting sun throughout the day a little bit, and then sunset. And then I say at night, blue light no longer exists. So in a perfect world, those melanopsin receptors, they stop firing, and the brain says, oh good, it's nighttime. Now we can release that melatonin that we made from the sunshine, as long as we're in the darkness. And then I say, but what happens in our world? We wake up in the morning, we turn on our lights, every single light that we're exposed to, be it even an LED, because people say, oh, I'm not on my phone at night. Whether or not that's true, who knows? But I said, what about an LED? Do you have lights on? I said, none of us are really sitting at home in the dark, are we? Like, we turn on our lights, we turn on a TV. Every single light that we're exposed to is just that single spectrum of blue. And it's the same color temperature of the sun at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So we wake up in the morning, our brain says, oh, it must be 12 o'clock. Here's some cortisol. And then I explain how that happens at night, and how cortisol is kind of raises our blood sugar, raises insulin, basically creates all of these other diseases under the sun. And then I start to tell them about getting sunrise light, UVA rise, wearing the kind of yellow glasses during the day, getting outside as much as possible, and wearing orange glasses at night. That's kind of hands down. And then I don't really have that much time to go much further than that during an eye exam, but normally I would say, if you're on computers, make sure that you have the night shift setting on the computers, or you can download Iris Tech. If you're sitting by a window, open the window. You want to sit a little bit higher than the screen so that you're looking down. You want to make sure you're blinking. You want to make sure you're moving, you're grounding, you're doing all of the things that we talk about. So that's a lot of information to give someone all at once, but those are the basics. That's kind of, the general thing that I'll say. And people love it. Like, people who really want to hear it, it's so, you can see this light bulb going off and like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Because it does, it just makes sense. Of course, our body needs to know what time it is. Like, it just makes so much sense. And now that I have a social media presence, I'm like, if you want more information, go watch my presentation so you can understand, because I can't explain it all in 5 minutes. I have a presentation on YouTube, and it kind of goes into all of it. And if you have any questions, just let me know. So that's, luckily, I've been able to say that the last few months, which has been a little bit easier. And I don't know if people are really doing that. I don't know if they're excited when they hear it and they leave and they're like, yeah, whatever. And some people don't want to hear it, and I can tell, and I don't go crazy. And it's like, what, we do need some light. So, and I leave it at that, and then I'll try again. So I don't push it on every single person, but I always have at least one statement about it. Some people aren't there for, some people come in for an emergency. I'm not going to start talking about if they're there because they got a piece of metal in their eye. Of course, I'm not going to say, by the way, you need your sunrise. But like, for people who are there just for eye exams, that's what I'll say.
Oh, that's beautiful. And you're making a huge impact. I just followed you on your YouTube just the other day, and I want to watch that presentation you have. I'm curious about you, because I always love to learn more. And it's great. Even like when I have a client be like, look, this is an eye doctor who said this, like, cause you know what I mean? Like it solidifies it when you have that title, I think, also, so that it's a great resource for us who are trying to get this information out. And the more we can get it out, the better the whole world
Yeah,
is going to
the
be,
whole
right?
world.
So like, that's like, you know, it has that whole quantum ripple effect, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, what do you think the cause then of, you know, macular degeneration is, myopia, those kinds of things? Like, in your opinion, what is the cause of why? Like, I mean, I needed glasses at 8 years old. I mean, obviously there's some sort of genetic predisposition in my family
Yeah.
lineage, right? I have two kids who also needed glasses at an early age as well, but they're also exposed to a lot more screens than I was exposed to, though I did watch quite a lot of TV as a kid also, like, so I'm not
Right.
going to deny that. So, but what is your opinion of what the cause of all this is? Because it's pretty epidemic.
It's gotten a lot worse. Yeah. But I would say it's absolutely blue light at this point. It's screen time. It's our world. As far as making it worse, not to say it never existed, but like you said, I think there is a genetic component because it does tend to run in families where it's a little bit worse. But it's just, it's all this screen time. And what it used to be, well, myopia, yes, absolutely. Screen time. And there's two things with myopia. One is the blue light reducing dopamine. We need dopamine to keep our eyes from growing. And we get that from the ultraviolet light and sunshine. And blue light obviously does the opposite of all that. It lowers our dopamine, it lowers our melatonin. It just does all of those things that can make it worse. But the other thing for myopia, which isn't as, it's not necessarily quantum, but the other thing, because we spend so much time looking at screens up close, our lens, in order to read, our lens has to expand to keep
Distance, right?
Right. Well, in the distance, our eyes can relax. Our lens relaxes. We don't have to put any energy into seeing for the most part. But as soon as we hold something close, our lens has to expand. Those ciliary body muscles have to contract. So we're looking at something close for so long that a lot of people will look away and say, oh, I look away and I can't see, because our muscles are just kind of stuck. So what happens, though, the contraction of those muscles can actually put pressure on the eyes, and it's exerting so much pressure that, in a way, reading a lot can also trigger the eyes to keep getting worse. So what I tell people when they come in addition to the sun, if you make a prescription stronger, especially for a child, I say, now we're going to make it stronger for a distance, but you're going to have to focus even harder again, right through that prescription. Because when you're nearsighted, it's a nice adaptation. You take your glasses off, you could read beautifully. You don't have to do anything because you're sighted for near. But as soon as you correct that, and now you're sighted for distance because you cleared that up, now you have to focus all over again. So now the body's starting all over again. Says, hey, I don't want to focus. Let's become more nearsighted, because when you're nearsighted, you don't have to focus for reading. And that cycle goes on and on and on. So when people first start wearing glasses, I'll say, just be really careful. Make sure you take them off for reading. If you don't need them to read, take them off. What a lot of people are doing now, myself included, is we do what we call myopia control, meaning that we get glasses and we add reading to the bottom, because a lot of kids they're not going to take them off for reading, or sometimes taking them off for reading isn't the correct prescription either. So we have glasses for distance if they, when they need them, and then a bifocal, a progressive, something that has reading at the bottom, so that it reduces that need for those muscles to focus, and it slows it down quite a bit. And they actually have contacts that do that as well. I know the contacts is a whole other story, but there are myopia control contacts, there are myopia control glasses. And I will say that in particular does slow things down. You get children who come in a year later, especially the ones that listen to the light story as well, and they either didn't get worse, and I have a few people who get a little better, which is really interesting. So there's two aspects of myopia. But as far as macular degeneration, cataracts, all of those things that are happening, and I'm seeing them so much more in younger ages, I ask everybody about their lifestyle. What are they doing? Everyone's inside, and then sunglasses outside. So it used to be an ultraviolet light story, and you still have the surgeon saying, you have to wear your sunglasses, you have to protect from the ultraviolet light. But you say, are you outside? No, I never go outside. So how is it ultraviolet light? It's blue light. The screen
How does that make any
time.
sense if you're literally inside in front of blue light all the time and never outside? And when they go outside, they wear the sunglasses. How could it be ultraviolet light? It doesn't even make any sense. It's like so crazy.
It's crazy. And we need melatonin to regenerate our photoreceptors. And how do we make melatonin from sunlight and darkness at night? So that's one of the main things. We need melatonin, we need melanin, we need infrared to make the exclusion zone water, so that all of the electricity in the eye is working properly. So we actually need infrared and ultraviolet A. Like, those are the two things that we are completely lacking by just getting the blue. And blue is destroying our photoreceptors. It's separating vitamin A. It's destroying that DHA, that healthy fat. And then the signaling is going. So we have macular degeneration, cataracts. The lens is just trying to protect itself. So it's getting yellower and yellower. It's trying to protect us from the blue light. I mean, again, some people get cataracts, I guess, from ultraviolet. And I'm not saying that it never, ultraviolet can't be an issue if you're exposed to a ton of ultraviolet light in the wrong way, and you never get your morning signal, and you just get this, strong signals at the wrong time, things like that.
Right.
But But blue light in our modern world, I think that is one of the biggest problems, our screen time.
Agreed.
And I didn't even talk about, being exposed to Wi-Fi, which dehydrates us and all of that as well, which adds to it. But yeah, absolutely.
So much. Like the blue light is number one, I think, and right. And then we never get the natural light. And then, of course, diet, which I would put after all those, of course.
Right.
Awful. And so we're really malnourished in all those areas. So it's kind of scary, right? And then if you have the predispositions and genetically, it's like, oh my goodness. So
you're just signaling those to turn on. You're signaling epigenetics to turn on from that. Can you talk a little bit, since you mentioned it, about how blue light destroys vitamin A and DHA in the eye? Since you mentioned that, is that something that you would like to chat about?
Yeah. So, so all the photoreceptors are linked to vitamin A in the body, including like even melanopsin, the circadian photoreceptors, but also the visual photoreceptors. So what we need to see our cones. We need cones to see, and it's linked to vitamin A. So when blue light, the wrong kind of blue light hits it, vitamin A gets separated, which is a normal thing that happens. But it's supposed to get regenerated. And DHA also, it's supposed to get regenerated. But what happens if we're just exposed to blue with nothing balancing it? Like in the sunshine, red and infrared is always there to balance out everything. It's always going to give us that, it's like the anti-blue antidote to the blue light.
Yeah,
like
red is the antidote to blue.
Yeah, exactly. So when we're just getting blue, we don't have the time, we don't have the ability to regenerate. So free vitamin A in that form is toxic, and it actually goes and destroys our photoreceptors. And DHA is needed to become like the electrical signal, to take light and turn it into an electrical signal. And the tract from the eyes to the brain, that retinal the connection that goes from the brain to the hypothalamus has the highest level of DHA in the entire body. And it's because there's so much light that's being absorbed and controlled and processed as electricity. So when we start destroying vitamin A and DHA, game over. Like it's a big problem. And we're not regenerating either, because we're not getting melatonin, because we're exposed to blue light all the time. Fish is important, as far as food, we definitely want to eat fish as opposed to taking it. I used to recommend fish oil supplements all the time, like for years and years and years. And now I don't. now I say, you gotta, you gotta just eat the fish at this point. I'm sorry, you gotta eat it.
Yeah. Well, and you can always do like salmon roe. You can do salmon, right? You can do like sardines. You could do anchovies. I'm just trying to think of other ones with DHA and have my head. Halibut has some, and also lamb. If you're not a fish person, lamb is a great source of DHA. Also, yeah.
Does grass-fed butter also have DHA? Because I always say like grass-fed meat, maybe. I don't know about
grass-fed meat does. Like grass-fed beef definitely does, but it's not as high. Like lamb is higher, and of course, like salmon's higher, but you're going to get some. But I don't think so.
No, I guess the butter. Yeah, not DHA.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Eggs, right?
Eggs will have some.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, pastured eggs will also have some. Yes, absolutely. So there are other options if you can't do fish. Shellfish, of course, is great. Scallop, shrimp. I mean, I think salmon roe is like one of the highest that I know of, or some sort of caviar is going to be pretty high. So
oysters.
Eat that DHA, people. You gotta get it in.
I mean, my kids, I worry about them because they're not getting. My son eats everything, but my daughter's not really getting it. And I always worry about her a little bit. So I'm not sure what to do about that. Try to sneak it in places. Oh, we eat a lot of meat. Like we eat a lot of grass-fed meat. So I guess she is getting it, but
so she'll get a little bit some, and eggs, and like, I'm sure you're doing great. Yeah. My kids actually, I have to take advantage of it because they really like shrimp and scallops, and I really like that too. And I live on an island. You think I would eat more of it? Like, like I should be eating a lot of that. And then like crab and like all kinds of, and lobster. I'm like, I really need to be like utilizing that in my meals more for them, because they really
get work though,
stuff, which is great. So,
that's great though.
Yeah, awesome.
So, Dr. Valerie, you're familiar with Jacob Lieberman? And then
yes, I actually have his book. Yes,
Light the Future of Medicine is his book. If you haven't read it, it's a great read.
What do you think about his use of colored glasses and whatnot, and how that affects our emotional health and
our mood and stuff? Yeah, I actually don't know too much about it, and I'm trying to learn more about it. I think it's so interesting, but I haven't delved into it. I don't use it in practice, but I love the idea. I think it's fantastic, but I don't know too much. I can't speak to it that much.
Okay, that's okay. No worries. I was curious about that because actually the practice that my kids go to here on Long Island, not the doctor, not the optometrist that they see, but another optometrist is actually read Jacob Lieberman's book and is starting to implement that with clients.
Oh, I love that.
I'm really so curious to see.
I'll ask.
Not so much circadian rhythms, but using those colored glasses and then that impacts the emotional body and trauma, and then it like will, you know, have this quantum effect on the body. So I am so super curious to know more about what goes
I'll
on.
ask
And I'm
you
kind
for
of
the
friends
name.
with him,
Yeah,
so I kind of can keep.
I'll ask you for the name of that person after.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I will send it your way. Yes.
That's
So
great.
yeah, it's like, listen, I mean, like the fact that that's coming out into the world is like, I was shocked because I started talking to him about like circadian biology and light, and I'm like, oh, like this is a good question for you. I'm like, you should really be wearing blue blockers, looking at that, like to correct your eye health. Like I'm telling him, you know.
Right.
And then he's like, have you, then he sends me a flyer about the thing. And he's like, do you know about this? I'm like, I do. I read that book. So it's just so interesting. Right. So yeah. So that's a good question for you. Like, what do you do? What are your daily practices that you do that support your health? Like even just in the work environment, you know, what do you do to support that? Like having to be in that kind of environment. How do you support your health there?
Yeah, it's tough. My situation, I'm in the dark for a big portion of the day too. So the lights are on, the lights are off. So I show up to work with like a suitcase of stuff every day. And you know, I get my sunrise. I also go for a UVA walk with my girlfriend down the block. Every morning we go for a walk. So luckily I have a schedule where I still have the time for that. Winter gets a little bit more difficult, but I make sure I always drive to work with my windows open. So I'm always getting that UVA. When I get to work, I wear the yellow. I was wearing blue blockers that weren't fully yellow for a little while because I had like a vanity thing. And I said, who cares? I'm wearing yellow from now on. So now I wear yellow. But I also have, we have an IT department, so I can't use iris technology. If I did, I wouldn't do this, but I have a cover. I have on Amazon a monitor cover. I have a bunch of these. This is an Ottlight. It's a full spectrum lamp. I also have a full spectrum lamp from blackbluelight.com. I also have a full spectrum light that has infrared that I kind of throw on throughout the day. I get outside if I can. I kind of just run outside and just for a few minutes. I'm always outside at lunch. I go for a walk at lunch. On the way home, it's usually light out, but at certain times of year, it is dark when I leave, and that's a shame. So it's tough. So I don't love those days. You know, it's really hard. I do the best I can. And like I said, I just try to open the windows and get outside as much as possible. Seasonal, you know, if it's winter, I try not to eat any like fruits that are grown in the tropics. And I do all the seasonal eating and all of that as much as I can. I always, you know, we always bring lunch. I never buy lunch, and things like that. Those are the things that I typically do.
Yeah. Well, it's so important for you to take care of your health too, right? You know, like sometimes we're, you know, always telling everybody, and then it's like it's hard, you know, like to take care of our health because we have jobs and things that we have to go to, and it's great to see that you're doing that. So that's really awesome.
I also have a diffuser that I run. I love this isn't quantum, but I just have I'm into I love essential oils, and I have a diffuser running, and I've been drinking spring water. I saw you drinking the Mountain Valley water. I bring a bottle of that to work now. Like that's my new thing that I've been doing, and I love it. So those are the other things that I do as well.
Have you heard of Living Libations? Nadine Artemis has such amazing essential oil products if you're interested in their
I use some of her face stuff. I love her. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you something else. Have you noticed any of your colleagues starting to express an interest or taking hints from you?
I have sent my presentation to all my colleagues. My two of my closest friends are optometrists, and we're all on board, and they practice they're also on Long Island. And the three of us, you know, we're quantum. Aside from them, my actual colleagues that I work with, not really. No, I mean, the staff, some of the staff do, but the colleagues, I mean, I sent the presentation. I'm not getting any, you know, they say that they're interested, but nobody's making any changes at all. And it's a shame because you see things that could be improved upon, I think, with light if everyone just, you know, did a couple of
and then you wearing those blue blockers has to, like, if they see the yellow tone, they have to like question, like, and wonder what that's about. Actually, at my son's optometrist office is where the only person that I've ever seen on Long Island wearing blue blockers in person. The one of the workers there was wearing orange tone blue blockers, and I was like, you're wearing orange blue blockers. Why are you wearing orange blue blockers? I was like, I had to ask him. I was like, I just have to ask you because my son, my 8-year-old's like, Mom, that guy has glasses like yours.
That's awesome.
So anyway, I asked him, and it was because of headaches. He said it, and it created his headaches from having to look at the screen all day, which I'm sure it did. But he was wearing orange, and I'm like, well, you might want to get a yellow pair, and you might want to go outside sometime during the day, like, you know. So I was giving him some tips, but anyway, like hopefully that prompts even that, like doing that. I always like wear them proudly and hope that, like, I just had to go to open house the other day for my kids. I'm like, I really hope somebody asked me about these today.
Yeah.
So just be like, well, this light in this classroom is really detrimental for our children's health. Like, but
I wore these to my son's like orchestra concert last year. And I said, is this really going to embarrass you? Or are you okay if I wear these? Like, I don't care. I asked my daughter if I could wear it for her. She said, absolutely not. She didn't want me to.
That was a nice sacrifice you made for her.
yeah. Well, they're all the way on the stage in the concert, right? They're not even going to see you.
I know. Nobody's looking at me. Nobody cares.
No one's going to know, and no one's going to care. Come on when you can.
But as far as work, I think I am just I don't want to say crazy, but I'm just, the natural one that does all her things. Yeah. And I will say that when there are some health issues that people want help with, I am the first person to come to. Like, how do I do this? What should I do? But
interesting.
But as far as light now,
how do you want to develop your practice or have your own practice, or what's your dream for your house?
So yeah, I mean, I would love to share this. I would love to develop courses. I would love to have kind of grow like a side. Like I'm working on doing what I love kind of outside, working with clients. I want to start courses. I want to do things like that where I'm really just sharing this information more, helping people more outside of clinic.
It'd be great also to have courses for other eye doctors.
Yes, that would be amazing. I think
it would. I just I thought about that in the beginning, and then I decided, let me do a presentation for people to like. It's easier to reach patients, and staff, as opposed to, again, it's so hard to reach other people. It really is. People in this industry are really, they'll listen. Some will even maybe listen to what I'm saying, but you could tell. And then I hear 5 minutes later them saying, make sure you wear your sunglasses all the time. I'm like, oh my God.
Wait a minute. What did we just talk about?
Right. So hard to change those beliefs, right? It's so entrenched, so like rigid, calcified, and it's just like takes a lot. I think until someone honestly has their own health crisis, when they're so entrenched, they're not going to change. They're not going to question. They're not going to think about. They should question what they're doing.
Right. I just wish we wouldn't wait that long. So like, I always look at my own health journey. I'm like, man, I wish I would have done the things earlier. I wish I would have questioned sooner. Like, why do we wait until our health crashes? Like, you can make that health crash not happen. You can quantumly change your, your narrative. That health crash doesn't have to exist. And I just like, I wish that people would not wait and make changes for a better, healthier them before the shit hits the fan. Let's be 100%. And it's not like, and the other message to say is we have not really been talking about diet and exercise. Like that's not what that's not what it is. That's not, that is not the main pillars. Not that I don't think what we eat is important, because I absolutely do. And I do think movement is important, I wouldn't put it as number one. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, I mean, learning that was so interesting. Like when we're eating food, we're breaking it down into electrons, and electrons are light, and that's what we're consuming. And I love that. I just love that so much.
It's a whole different paradigm shift to look at what you're eating as a condensed form of light and electrons. And it's like, that's like, wait, what? You say that to somebody else, they're like, I was just going to eat that melon. I'm like, well, where'd that melon grow? Or like, it's just like a whole different thing. So yeah, it's really cool.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to see what you do like in the future, where you go. And I'm excited that you're putting this out there and that you're sharing this work with your clients, and you're brave enough to share it with your colleagues. And that I'm just really excited to see what happens, because I think that what you're doing is really, really important and really, really needed in today's modern society.
Thank you. Thank you. I just love this whole quantum community. I love everybody is just doing such great work. I think it's so nice.
Yeah. And it's an important message that we all get out there, because we think because we talk about it so much that people know, and then you get out in the world and you're like, no, we don't. We have a lot of work. We have a lot of work to do.
Absolutely.
To get this message spread. So I was thrilled. This conversation was amazing. So glad to have you on. Tell everybody where they can find you. And you're taking clients right now on Zoom, right? If they want to get like quantum coaching to help their eye health and really their overall health, really everything. It's going to have a quantum effect on the body, right? So please tell
Right.
people where they can find you.
So I don't have a website yet, but I'm on YouTube and Instagram, and within those on Instagram and YouTube, you can get the links to how to work with me. So it's QuantumEyeDoc on both, on Instagram and YouTube, and then you can kind of link to working with me. There's a little, you know, page of other links as well that are on there. So,
And follow Valerie, because you could learn an immense amount just from looking at her Instagram. So you'll learn a ton just from that. So, I mean, this was a great conversation. We really appreciate you coming on. And anything else you want to share that we didn't get to say, or?
no, I think we pretty much covered everything. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Perfect.
Thank you so much, Dr. Valerie.
Thank you. That was fun.
Thanks so much for joining today's show. For more information about Heather and her offerings, see her Instagram at Heather Crimson or go to her website at enlightenedmood.com.
And for more information about Vanessa's offerings, visit her Instagram at bright_light_wellness and her website at brightlightwellnesscoach.com. See you next week.